Town and state officials are nearing a deal that would enable the shooting range to reopen. We have details from last night's Conservation Commission. And lawmakers are considering legislation that would change the age of retirement for municipal employees. Plus, are you looking to get rid of styrofoam packaging after the holidays? We tell you where and when you can recycle it. These stories and more on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, January 8th, 2014. I'm Sarah Mannel. Town officials are hoping a compromise with the state will allow them to reopen the West Barnstable shooting range. The State Division of Conservation Services recently raised concerns about the range, saying conservation land should not be used for that purpose. The state agency does not want to be involved with managing the range and wants the town to remove its conservation land status. To make that happen, one option would be for the town to swap out that land for another 30-acre parcel for conservation purposes. The division's director, Robert O'Connor, went before the Barnstable Conservation Commission last night to explain that position.
So I think we've kind of looked at this as, we have given out literally hundreds of grants over that time period of this program, and they've all been for conservation purposes. And a lot of times and I know in your letter you asked for the definition of active and passive recreation. The words passive recreation are often used with the conservation grants, and in the law that kind of started the self-help grant program that this funded, they talk about passive recreation, and in the chapter it says that the towns would get the grants to acquire lands for preserved and their lands to be preserved in their natural state, and then it talks about the quiet enjoyment of the land and things like that. The only definition we could actually find of passive recreation in any state law or regulation is something that's actually under DEP that guides activities on drinking water lands, and talks about passive recreation again, and things like nature study, hiking, horseback riding, things like that are considered passive recreation. So we have had a few very old grants that we consider have kind of pre-existing conditions that are incompatible with what appears to be the purposes of the program for conservation lands and passive recreation. Another one that I've talked to Mark and Rob about is the Edgartown, an airport in Edgartown that was bought with a grant. The grass airfield was important for habitat. Some of the land beyond the airfield was open to the public, but it also included the hangar and the facilities around the hangar. And as they wanted to expand the restaurant and the hangar area, at that point we kind of said, look, this is really beyond the scope of our program. Why don't you take this land out of the program, which you need to do through legislation, and we would support that legislation. And then you can, not have us kind of reviewing every little thing that you're doing within that developed area. And we look at the shooting range in a similar fashion in that, when it was closed in order to kind of, refortify the safety aspects of it, and I know you've gone through a lot of good work in the last year or two looking at, what it would take to run the shooting range in a safe manner. I think that, having more facilities and kind of a bigger safety zone around the area is kind of further kind of highlighting the fact that the area around that facility is not really compatible with the purpose of the grant. And so that's where we looked at the model that we used on Martha's Vineyard and said, could we work together to find the area of the land that seems to be kind of in this more active recreation mode, and move it out of the program so that you can, not have to come to us each time you want to, build a berm or whatever you need to do. So that's, we're really trying to work cooperatively with you.
Commissioner Scott Blaze has challenged O'Connor's position. Blaze has argued that shooting should fall under the definition of passive recreation. Blaze has also expressed concerns about the timing of this issue being raised.
There's a perception that the shift in position of your office with respect to this range has been abrupt and difficult. For instance, the creation of the berms. There's an evolution on this site, not a revolution. The creation of these berms, we're used to requiring applicants for alteration of their parcels, including our own town, to produce mitigation whenever you've got an environmental alteration or to a resource or a bordering vegetated wetland or something like that. And if you inquire, we're probably some of the most active, one of the most active commissions there is from the standpoint of requiring mitigation. And that was, and I applaud that was what required by your office for revegetation with native vegetation, that habitat be restored, that the ecosystem functions of the area that had to be disturbed by the creation of those berms, be restored. So the idea that that the habitat value of the sound attenuating devices or the safety exclusionary buffer zones that might end up being established, would be altered, I think is not correct. I think there's the present footprint of the range is not going to be altered. It's just going to be operated in a more responsible manner.
Assistant Town Manager Mark Ellis says this is the last issue that needs to be resolved to reopen the range, and promised to continue negotiations with the State Division of Conservation Services.
So we want to firm that up, make sure this is good to go and into the indefinite future. So again, we don't have to come back to you if there's a policy change or a position change on this. Make sure that that's the case. We do need to sit down and evaluate the inventory of parcels that might be appropriate for this swap, but we can begin all of those in parallel with each other. I think the critical path here is going to be both the legal parties getting together.
And both parties will be getting together in the near future. We will keep you updated on any resolutions. Governor Deval Patrick is proposing changes to retiree health care benefits. Barnstable Director of Finance Mark Milne says the bill is designed to help deal with the unfunded liability attributed to paying for health care benefits for retired employees.
And some of the key changes that they're looking to make include things like increasing the minimum years of service requirement from 10 years to 20 years. So employees who come, let's say, from the private sector into the municipal sector and work for a town for 10 years can retire and receive the health care benefit from that community, even though they only worked for the community for 10 years. So obviously, they weren't contributing to the system for most of their working life. However, they will receive a health care benefit for as long as they are retired, and there's a significant cost associated with that. And so this legislation would change that requirement from at least 10 years to 20 years. You have to work for the municipality in order to qualify for health care benefits upon retirement.
As well as increasing the age of retirement for certain employees, the legislation would also allow for spousal health benefits if the retiree is to pass away. The bill was proposed by the governor last year and still has a way to go before any action is taken. If you have styrofoam that needs recycling, your chance to do so is coming up. A special styrofoam recycling event is being held at the Barnstable Transfer Station on Saturday, January 11th. Accepted items include takeout containers, foam egg cartons, hot coffee cups, and packing blocks. All acceptable items should be labeled with a number 6 recycling symbol. For further details, visit the town's website. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mannel.